Hmm. So, to start this off, one of the things that is very interesting about trust is, the first thing is everything is trust, nothing is not trust. Okay, because there is no money, everything that happens in this country has to be done in trust. So whether it is a court case or it doesn't matter what it is, it's trust. Okay. So what you want to do, or what I'm trying to show you guys how to do, is the trust that's it's called an implied trust. Okay, the trust that exists as a social security account is it's an implied trust, and it's a trust that you don't control. It's something the government has control of, and it's also what they use to pull you into jurisdiction, charge you with crimes, make you pay taxes, so on and so forth. It's essentially the tool that is used to keep you in slavery. So I'm going to go into the PowerPoint so that I can kind of show you what I'm talking about. So come on. All right, this is put on by the entity that I created to help educate myself and the other people about how things work, and I call it Stark Financial Group. This slide shows about trust. I just kind of went into it a little bit, and I call it Trust 101. And it's, in particular, this is what we're trying to get to, is the foreign grantor trust. Um, so the first thing is, like I was saying, is that, the first trust that was ever created is the heaven and earth trust. Okay. This is why, like everything that you run into, whether it's courts, equity, people that have been doing this a while, they throw around words like, maxims of law and bylaws and things like that. And that comes from the heaven and earth trust. Okay. The heaven and earth trust, you can find this all in the Bible. It starts out in Genesis. God made the heavens and the earth. And then God made Adam, and then he had Adam name all the animals. Okay, so that's a trustee. If you look up what the actions of a trustee are, it literally talks about naming things. Okay. And then when you get further in the Bible, in Daniel, it talks about, the statue of Babylon with the gold head and the silver chest, and then a stone that was not made by the hands of man is going to destroy Babylon. So that's what you're looking at, or what you're talking about, is the whole thing of Babylon. Okay. And so that talks about that in Daniel, and then you get into the New Testament and you talk about our beloved trustee, which is Jesus Christ. Okay. So all of this stuff like applies through, what you can find in scripture. And it's not just the Catholic Bible. It's in every single holy writing has the same stories in it, whether it be Genesis, whether it's the Jewish Bible, or in any of the other stuff. It's all in there. Okay. And that's because that's what God's plan was, is to set everything up in trust for his people, which is us. Right. So when you get into it from the beginning here, so there's three components of a trust. You have the grantor, the steward, or what they call the trustee. We use the word steward because we're trying to like give you indications about how God is talking about this in the Bible. He talks about it. There's an actual story about the steward, where he squandered the assets of the trust, and then he had to fix everything. So that's why they use steward, beneficiary, and heir is us. Okay. And the grantor would obviously be God. Okay. Every single trust, whether it's a court case or whatever it is what's called a nominal trust under this trust. Everything. Okay. There's nothing out there that exists that is not a part of the heaven and earth trust. All right. So you got your grantor, the steward, beneficiary, and heir, and then the most problem is the trust property. So When you're talking about Genesis and things like that, what would the trust property you would say would be the heaven and earth, the animals and the land and the water and, and all that stuff. So that's why they also talk about, I don't know if you've ever heard this, where they're talking about how gold and silver is portable land. Okay, because everything either is the land or comes from it. Even in the Bible, it talks about that, Adam was made from the clay. So that's why that is important. So then when you get into what the grantor is, the creator of the trust creates the indenture, establishes trust property, sets the terms of the trust, chooses a trustee, chooses a beneficiary. Okay. So if you like watch and you follow all these videos from Pat Devine, okay, he specifically talks about the Bible and says that the Bible is not as much of a spiritual instrument as it is a legal instrument. Okay. So Pat is even specifically talking about how you're supposed to use that book in order to understand how everything works. Understand that even even they have to use it. Even the people that are like totally trying to destroy all of our lives, they are using the same trust that we use. The rules don't change. God's law is God's law. Okay. So then you get into the steward here. The steward's the protector of the trust against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So we've all heard that in anybody's oath of office. Um, Keeps the trust in honor, pays debts, administers the trust as it's written. That's very important because when you're creating your own trust, like there's a lot of people running around doing this foreign grantor trust or FGT, and they don't have an actual trust indenture. Okay, well, it says right here that the steward is supposed to administer the trust as it's written. Okay, well, if you don't have it written down, how is that possible? Okay, so the implied trust they just don't work as well. Okay, and then your job as the steward, which is what we are in our foreign grantor trust, is we have to vet both the claimant and the claims, right? So even a court case is a claim, right? It's a claim for money, right? So everything that we deal with as far as trust goes, it's commerce, right? So that's what that is. Um, then the beneficiary of the heir is obviously the one that is supposed to benefit from the trust. In the heaven and earth trust, that's everybody. That's everybody on the planet, whether it's the animals, whether it's us, whether it's, people in different countries, it's all the same. Everybody is the beneficiary and heir. Okay. And how we talk about this in equity is the beneficial title holder, right? So God granted us title, and then the steward is the agents. Okay. So, the attorney general and the president of the United States and all those people, those are all agents, right? So those agents are supposed to make sure that you get your title, right? That's why they've written all these crazy laws, is because they're trying to keep you from claiming your title, right? So it's very important that you understand this, right? So then we get into God's law, trust law. It's the same thing. Okay. Um, so this is a copy of the trust that I give away for free. All right. So this is I got this from the Moors, and then I just kind of cannibalized it and I put it out there so everybody has a example of what a trust looks like. This one's about 23 pages. Okay, so Article 1, okay, which is the beginning of it, it sets the stage of the trust. It establishes your rights. It establishes the settlor benefits. The settlor is the grantor. Okay. It talks about the jurisdiction, the date, and the address. Okay. So this one here, if you look down in this and you look under Article 1 rights, and it says the settlor is a national free being. So that's where you put the country in that you want to use, the foreign jurisdiction. I use the Bahamas, and I use the Bahamas because it's close to us and because they're one of the countries that will not open this trust up to the IRS. Okay. Everybody's talking about this Hague stuff and whatever. None of that Hague country crap matters when you're trying to create a trust. When you're trying to create a trust, the only thing you want to be concerned with is it a country that is going to lay down for the IRS, because that's what you don't want. You don't want to be, stacking gold coins in this and then have them open it up and take it all for whatever the reason, right? This is also why it's supposed to be irrevocable. Okay, so then this goes through that stuff there. Okay, and then Article 2 establishes the trust property, right? So what exactly are you putting in this trust for somebody else? Okay, and in this case, the grantor of your trust is the foreign person. Okay, the birth certificate person born in whatever state your birth certificate says you were born in. So your social security, all caps name, is the grantor, right? And then you, the private banker or the individual banker, are the trustee. So you don't use the social security number. And then the beneficiaries can be whatever you want it to be. It can be your children, it can be you, it can be, for me, what I did is I set up a revocable trust, and that is who receives all the trust property. Okay. So that's how I move everything from the treasury to the grantor trust to commerce. Okay. And so that's how I do that. So this establishes the trust property. And then Article 3 is the purpose of the trust. Okay, why are we doing this? Okay, and in this one it talks about the seller desires to create the trust to use it as a conduit to express in the private and the public whatever deemed necessary. Okay, so that's the purpose of the trust. And then Article 4 is the deposition. So how are things to be deposed? How are they to be transferred out of the trust? Okay. And then you got your trust administrative powers, which is basically your trustee, right? And this tells them, can they set up bank accounts? Can they borrow money? Can they do whatever? Now, one thing that you're going to run into when you get your trust set up is banks aren't going to loan you money on the trust. Now, there's probably some people that get it done, but in general, they don't like to do it. And the reason why is because they can't come get the property. Trust ownership of title is absolute. It's a higher ownership than a bank. So if they loan you money, okay, and they use the house as collateral and you put it in the trust, they can't touch it. Okay, so you're going to find that there aren't a lot of places that are going to let you do this as far as loans go and stuff like that. So Article 6 is the trustee hold harmless. That is just basically that you, the human being who's the trustee of this trust, is not responsible for anything that the trust does or doesn't do. Okay. Article 7 is irrevocability. Okay. In order for a trust to have asset protection, it has to be irrevocable. Okay. It cannot be a revocable trust. A revocable trust is not a trust, and essentially the IRS sees that as an alter ego. Once you get deeper into this stuff, your words are gonna be kicked around like could. Okay, so an irrevocable trust with a contract between you and the trust, it establishes that there's a contract and that you are not the trust. Therefore, there's a separation. Okay, when you have a revocable trust, there's no separation. You are everything in the trust. And because of that, there is no protection. So if you're doing this to try and protect something, which is what we all are trying to do, then you want to make sure that it's irrevocable. Okay. Article 8, this is in the state in which the trust assets, again, not the trust itself, are physically located, right? So the trust itself, in my case, is established in the Bahamas, but I keep the property in Georgia. So this is what you are looking at here. This is talking about where you're keeping the assets. Okay. Spiritual bylaws. Okay. Spiritual bylaws are basically an addendum to your trust where you're going to establish what spiritual precepts of the holy writings you are going to use in your trust. Okay. and I'm going to go over this in a minute. When we get through this PowerPoint, I'm going to show you spiritual bylaws. I'm going to show you the maxims of equity. Okay. So this talks about the maxims of equity. There are three main maxims that you need to be concerned with. Is equity is equality. Okay. So when you are operating in equity, you are operating as an equal to whatever you're dealing with, whether it is a company, whether it's another person, whether it's a child. Everything is equality. Anytime something isn't equal, or somebody is not handling things in a certain way, then that other person deserves to be made whole again. Okay, so that's equity. Equity will not allow a trust to fail for the want of a trustee. Okay, so if you're operating in equity, that's honorably, okay, and you come in with clean hands, and a trustee that you run into, whether it be a judge or a prosecutor or whoever, and they don't act honorably, the trust cannot fail for want of a trustee. So that's where you get fraud or failure to, provide a fiduciary obligation or any of those things. That's what they're talking about there in equity. Equity regards the beneficiary as the true owner. Okay, in law, in the legal system, in commerce, commerce does not see the beneficiary. That's why when you go into court and you tell the judge you're the beneficiary, they ignore you, right? It's not that they didn't hear you, it's that they cannot deal with you. Okay, in the legal system, they can only deal with the trustee. That's why they need you to be the trustee. So that's why when you go in the court and you express the trust and you tell them you're not the trustee, that you're the beneficial owner, that's why they try and ignore you and all that stuff, is because they cannot deal with you. They can only deal with the trustee. A trustee holds property for another person. Okay. Beneficial owner owns the property. Okay. It's the highest title in the land. That's why we can get a allodial title, because we are the beneficial owners. Okay. So trust certification, when you get into this, okay, this is what you take to the bank. You don't take the whole trust indenture to the bank, you take this. Okay, and it just basically says how the trust is to be dealt with. Who are you? Who's the trust? Who's the settlers, which is the grantor? Who's the trustee? Is it revocable or irrevocable? So on and so forth. So it goes through all that information. And so then you get that notarized, and then you just keep that, and that's what you give. There's three things that you're going to end up giving a bank. First of all, they're always going to want the first page. They don't want the rest of it. They just want the first page because they want to know the name of it. Then they want the certification, and then they want the appointment of trustee. Okay, so those are three documents that you need to have ready when you go and do bank accounts. Templates, and these are all either for free on the website, or you can ask me. So you got your trust body. The Schedule A is where all your property is at. Certification of trust is what you take to the bank. Trust bylaws tells how you, the person, are to be dealt with. Maxims of law talks about how you're to be dealt with in equity. And pour over will is something that you use because you have a foreign trust and then you want to operate in the United States. The pour over will is the things that you're going to put in the trust that are in the United States and not in a foreign country. Okay. So that's basically that is the PowerPoint. Now I'm going to get into, I'm going to talk about a few other documents that I have ready for you guys to view. So share screen again. All right, so this one here, this is the actual trust indenture, right? So it's just like I was showing you, it goes through. This is the first page, Article 1. Article 2 is trust property. Article 3 is the purpose. Article 4 is the deposition. Article 5 is the administrative powers. Article 6 is the hold harmless. Article 7 is irrevocability. And then you got your witnesses and your notaries. It's double notarized. You got two notaries for each witness. And then this is the Schedule A. This goes through the trust property. Okay. And it's just, the one that I have for free, it's got all this information in there. You just go through and enter your stuff in there. Right. And you just go through this about 3 pages, and then you start adding stuff. Like, for example, I did a silver bond the other day. So then I added that and I printed this off and had it notarized again and put it in my folder. Um, so, and just to give you a idea here, what I do is I do these 3-ring binders. I don't know what you all do. But instead of having like files and stuff like flying all over the place, I create these 3-ring binders. So this one here, this one has the trust, right? So all the pages in it. And then, you don't have to do all this fancy stuff. I just like the fancy paper and stuff, but a lot of people just print it on white paper. It doesn't matter. So then it's got the certification of the trust, and affidavit. This is, Wisconsin Secretary of State to get it notarized or to get it authenticated for the birth certificate. Here's some more birth certificates. That's my authentication. Then all my 3 EINs are right here. This is a Department of Transportation, DOT number. So what I did is I took my foreign grantor trust. I went to the US DOT, told them it was that I was a foreign entity and that I needed to drive a car in America. And they gave me a DOT number, and then you put that DOT number on your license plate, and it's 100% legal. So all these people out there putting private and all that stupid crap on license plates and ended up in jail. That's why, is because you just gotta do it simple. They're gonna give you a number, then you use the number that they give you to put on the plate, and that's the number you drive on. 100% legal. Okay. This because the United States Corporation is in Minnesota and everybody's all caps name is created in Minnesota, then you go to Minnesota and you get a name reservation on your all caps name. So that gives you copyright. Okay. So technically, if they try and create a court case after you copyright your name, it's copyright infringement. Then Form 56, Form 56F, 3520A is the form that you want to fill out once you have your trust together and you're letting the IRS know. And that's how you express grant. That's how you go from a foreign express trust to a foreign grantor trust, is by letting them know that you're claiming title. Okay. So 2848, W8 Ben, 8832, and there's more stuff from Minnesota. And then CUSIP number. I don't know. I've had some people tell me that they can't find it on Fidelity anymore. I found mine on Fidelity. Now you have several CUSIP numbers. All the CUSIP number is an identifier from the Treasury on securities. So you're going to have plenty of CUSIP numbers. It's not necessary that you find a particular one. So this is something I just wanted to share that with you guys so that you can see how I do it. So we can go back here. All right. So then this is the acknowledge and acceptance by trustee. That's one of those documents I told you the bank's going to want. Memorandum of trust declaration. Okay. So a trust is a transmitting utility in commerce. Okay. The transmitting utility you have in commerce right now is your social security number. But when you revoke your social security number from being your transmitting retail utility, it doesn't mean you don't have your social security number anymore. It just means that it's not attached to you as you're not the surety of it anymore. Okay. So when you revoke the SSN through Pat Devine's paperwork, okay, then you got to have something to operate in commerce. So that's what this is. And so what I did is I also created a name that's called the Kent Nicholas Stark Holding Company. So I use this to hold assets. Okay. So that's another thing that you can do with this transmitting utility. And then the certification, and that's basically the 23 pages of that part of it. Then I wanted to share this with you. This is Weiss's Concise Trustee Handbook. If you don't have this, okay, get this. This is one of the best pieces of information you will ever have on this. And this is, he's from England. And this whole book just goes through and explains to you in dummy terms how a trust works and what to do with it. Now, the main important thing about this is when you get to the end of it, okay, this is the Universal Independent Contractor Agreement. So if you are the trustee of the trust, okay, you're not the trust. So how you want to establish that you're not the trust or the alter ego is you create contracts. So this one here, you would create a contract between the trust and yourself to drive the car or to use the money out of the account to buy groceries, right? Every single thing that you do with the trust, you want to have contracts in place. So there's that one, and then there's this independent contractor agreement. So one is to do stuff in commerce. It says right here, the services. So if you're going to be helping the trust with bookkeeping, then you need to add this in here and say, I'm going to be the bookkeeper, right? And so when you have these contracts, it keeps you out of a jam, right? So I read this a dozen times. If you guys have already read it, kudos to you. If you guys haven't messed with the Weiss Trustee Handbook, then get a copy. I sell it on the website. You can download it for free from Scribed. Come on. Stupid. All right. So this here are the maxims, right? So I'm just going to go over some of these. Okay, one who seeks equity must do equity. All right, that's coming in with clean hands. You can't go into equity and say I want a remedy and be an asshole. Okay, equity will not suffer a wrong without there being a remedy. In other words, if somebody has taken something from you, you have to be made whole again. Equity regards as done what ought to be done. Equity is a sort of equality. We went through that already. Equity aids the vigilant and not those who slumber on their rights. Okay. So this is why if you go into a courtroom and you aren't smart enough to speak about your rights to the judge, that you get screwed. Like you have to know what you're talking about. You got to do these processes and then you got to be able to stand on them, right? And we hear that all the time, but once you get to court, if you ever get to court, you're going to find this out, okay? Equity imputes an intent to fulfill an obligation, okay? No performance of general obligation is sufficient unless the law requires perfect performance, okay? So this is talking about equity demands performance. Equity acts in personam. Equity acts as the duties of the people, not objects, or equity acts in personam, um, not in rem. Okay. So all of these things in equity have case laws with them. Okay. Because a express trust is governed by the common law. That's the other reason why I chose the Bahamas, is because the Bahamas enacts the original common law of the UK. Okay, so if you're trying to create a trust that is governed by the common law, then go find a jurisdiction that enforces common law. Okay, so equity does not require an idle gesture. Okay, so if somebody asks you something and you just stay quiet and things don't go your way, it's your own fault. He who comes into equity must come with clean hands. Equity delights to do justice, not by halves. A violation having been established, it may be appropriate to resolve marginal doubts against the wrongdoers. Courts should not be brooding in remedying injustice. Equity delights to do justice and not by halves. So it's basically saying don't half-ass anything. Okay. Equity will take jurisdiction to avoid multiplicity in suits. In other words, equity gets all jurisdiction. Once you come to equity, it has jurisdiction over all matters. Okay. Equity follows the law. Okay. We're talking law, not legal, not legalese, not statutes, rules, and regulations. We're talking about law. Law is common law or a precedent set by a court case decision, right? Equity will not assist a volunteer. Volunteer is a trustee. Okay, so again, the trust cannot fail by the want of a trustee, right? It has to, the equity has to serve the beneficiary. Equity will not complete an imperfect gift. When equities are equal, the law will prevail. Between equal equities, the first in order of time shall prevail. In other words, whoever files the case, if it's a tie, they're the ones that win. Okay. Equity will not allow a statute to be used as a cloak for fraud. That's coloring of the law. Okay. They talk about that in 18 USC 242. Okay. Equity will not allow trust to fail for want of a trustee. 20, equity regards the beneficiary as the true owner. And then, you get that signed and then you add that to your trust indenture. So that's basically like the the kind of the 101 beginning class that I do on this. It's basically because first of all, we talk a lot of here people talk about where Pat says don't do trust, don't do trust, don't do trust. Okay, what Pat's talking about what don't do trust is statutory trust. Any trust that's governed by a state law is not going to be in your benefit. The laws are written for the commerce. The laws are written for the banks, for the courts, for everybody else. They're not written for you. Okay, so when you get a statutory trust, all you're doing is giving the state jurisdiction over all your property. You're making the state the trustee. And so there's no protection. There's no protection when it comes to that. So when he's saying that, don't do trust, it puts you in servitude. That's what he's talking about. Stay away from statutory trust. Okay. You want to get a foreign grantor trust. You want to get an express trust, right? And then you want to express grant, like I showed you here today. And this is the beginning because before you get into any kind of trust, I want you to know what you're doing. Okay, you have to be able to stand on this and talk about it smart. So, I'm not just trying to sell people trust. That's why the trust template is free, and that's why I do these classes, is so that people understand where you can get the information from to know and learn how this thing works. There's a reason why every billionaire in the world uses an express trust. They call it the pure trust, okay? But it's the same thing. The Rockefellers have it, the Rothschilds, like Vanderbilts, like all these big families all do this. It's all the same. So, there's a lot of stuff like when you read IRS laws and you read different laws where they say, oh, express trusts aren't legal. What they're saying is that we can't talk about it. We can't deal with it. And they can't deal with it because they are statutory law. Even the IRS, federal laws with the IRS are statutory laws. Okay. And most of the laws with the IRS aren't even laws, they're just rules. Okay. Because the 15th and 16th Amendment was never ratified. Therefore, they can't make laws that make us pay taxes. Okay. The only reason you pay taxes is when you sign the SS5 and get a Social Security card, you gave them jurisdiction over you. Okay. And that's what we're doing with the revoke the SSN is we're revoking the SS5. Okay. We're revoking that contract. right? So then when you're, when you're doing all this and you're getting this set up, that's why they say that. That's why they say they're not legal. I live in Georgia. They try and tell me that all the time. I went to bankruptcy court and I sent my 3520A in, and the bankruptcy court showed up one day with a copy of my trust. And they said, and I never sent it to them. Okay. They had a copy of the trust and they said, this is fraud. And I was like, okay, then why aren't you arresting me? And they haven't. I did OIDs, I did all this stuff, and they've never arrested me because I pulled myself out of the system. They don't have jurisdiction. Okay. And this trust, because it's governed by the rules of Bahamas, is it's basically its own country. And it's at a higher form than anything else. So that they can't even deal with it. Right. And that's what Pat was talking so much about about having the foreign grantor trust, because that's how you acquire your property. That's how you get things out of the estate and to you is through the foreign grantor trust. Okay. So that's what this is. Okay. I also have another video on foreign grantor trust, and I will post that in the group so you guys can watch that too. That one's another hour long. And now I'd like to open it up to questions, and anybody that has anything to add or to ask, feel free to go ahead. Okay.
Hey, Kent, so one of the things I wanted to ask you, so in the concept, it seemed like setting up this foreign grantor where this trust is kind of like forming like a little mini government itself. Hey, could you hear me?
So you asked if this was like setting up a government, and it is. Okay. That's why this trust has to be in writing, and that's why it's got to have all these details in it. Because how does the person that you go up against know how to deal with you if you don't put it in writing? Okay. This I found a lot of them out there that are like 4 or 5 pages long. This one I got from the Moors. Okay. And I'm going to tell you, the Moors did not pioneer this information. Okay. But they have written some of the best stuff on the planet. Okay. Their stuff for discharging debt is so good. You just send those proof of claims out and you will never hear from those people again. And so that's why I went and I looked for it, and I found a couple it was basically the exact same trust, and it was two different people. And then I went through and I like picked it apart, right? So I broke it down so that people can, people of all faiths and of all peoples can use it, right? And so you can do whatever you want with it. When you get the free version from me, you just you do what you want with it. You put your information in there and you change, like bylaws and stuff about, religious stuff and whatever, how you want to be treated. You just change that in there. And that's also why I want you to read the trustee handbook and all that, is because you got to know how to do this, right? You can't go to somebody and say, hey, do this for me, because they don't know how you should be treated. You only know that, right? Does that
Okay.
answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. No, you see, I had one more that I wrote down.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, like what would be the purpose for trying to get a commercial bank account?
Well, the reason why that I have one, and so when you read the Weiss Trustee Handbook, it tells you to get a non-interest bearing account for the trust. And that is so that you have a commercial account to use, to deal with, to you know, if you need to pay a bill, or like, so you're the trustee, right? So how are you going to pay yourself? If the trust doesn't have an account, how are you going to accept payment from them? You know, um, and then once you start doing your individual banker stuff, now you're going to have your TD account and all that stuff, right? But you still got to get that stuff into the private, and from the private into the public, right? So
Gotcha.
that's what this is. This is a transmitting utility. This is a vehicle for you to take private money and put it in the public so that you can use it.
Okay. Okay.
So I haven't done a lot of the TD stuff. I have the account set up and all that, but I haven't messed with it, too much yet. But it's still like until you get the express card, and in Pat's videos, he talks about some people call it the black card, some people call it the express card, whatever. Until you get that, like you don't have a way to bring the money from one place to another. So that's what that gives you.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. Cause off in the TDA account, like if you so like you purchase a bond or a treasury bill, and once it mature and you get paid, yeah, you still have to bring you have to bring your funds back over to your commercial account.
Right. So this does it where it's tax free, right? Because it's not using your social security number, and then the money goes into the trust, and then it's governed by whatever laws of the country you use.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And they can't mess with you. So anything else? Anything else?
This time.
Yeah, I got a question about the revocable trust. So, with the revocable trust, I have one. Does it has to be recorded?
I don't record trusts, right? When I send my 3520 AN, I send the first page and the certification of trust to the IRS. I don't send the citus. So even in my revocable trust that I have for my family, I don't send that anywhere. I only send the first page and the certification.
Okay, so that means that I was misinformed because I was informed that you have to get it recorded
If you do that,
in
then
order
you're
for
under their jurisdiction.
I can okay. That makes so much sense. I appreciate that. Thank
Yep.
you.
So I did one, I did the revocable one first, and then I did this one. So like I did the same thing, but I didn't record it, but I did it. And then I was like, oh, wait, there's some other things that I want to do. So I created another. I actually have four of them. I have the foreign grantor trust. I have the family trust. I have a gun trust for all my firearms. And then I have a business trust that I use for my companies. And yeah, I love it. Now that
Um,
go ahead. Sorry.
oh no, go ahead. You can finish.
I was just saying that I love it. I love doing business with trusts, and I will never go back to the other way.
So, in order to acquire all those trusts, like what is the procedures to get all of that?
Well, I just researched and created them. And
Oh,
I just main thing, like I told you, I gave you that Weiss trustee handbook thing. Like that's where you start. Start reading
okay.
that. And there's another one. It's like Gibson's or I'll have to look it up and I'll put it in the group, but it's this other law review that talks about trusts. The other thing is um, Henry Gibson's Suits and Chancery tells you, like the Suits and Chancery book tells you about equity. If you really want to dig into what equity is, read Suits and Chancery. It's like 1,000 pages, but I mean, there's videos on YouTube. You can listen to it. But that's like these books are things that you need to know.
So let me see, I got another question. Without
Yep.
I ain't gonna take that book out. But
Mhm.
so like when you want to move something from when you
You there?
without
I'm
muting.
sorry.
Okay.
Go
Now I
ahead
was
and ask
wanting to
that
know,
again.
okay, like let's say like when you want to move something, like you want to move one of your assets into your foreign grantor, would that be done through an indenture agreement?
Yeah. So that's that in that Weiss trustee handbook. When you look in the back, those contracts, that's how you do that. So
Okay.
that trustee handbook is 99 pages. And so there's a bunch of them out there that are only 70. Make sure you get the one that's 99 pages. Okay. And it's 42 pages is the book. So 50 pages of documents are on the back of it that give you all kinds of stuff to show you how to use it. So yeah, like definitely dig into that, and that'll answer a
Okay.
lot of questions.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Hi, Ken. I have a question.
Yep.
Um, I'm trying to figure out as far as Paul Michael's process, where does that fall into this as far as like setting up the trust documents? Do we need to do his process first or like set up the actual trust
Once you
documents?
get the EINs, then you
Mhm.
should be working on this.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Once you get the EINs, you should start working on this part. Now, it's really not something Pat taught. So that's why Paul Michael doesn't really dig into this too much. But
Gotcha.
um most of the other people that do this do dig into this. Um
Okay.
and I've said this to quite a few people is that they put out a lot of good information, but they're not a one-stop shop. And that you need to like look into other people that are doing processes like Gene Keating. Like I was just talking to this gentleman about the Moors. The Moors do amazing things, right? Like don't close yourself off to just one platform, right?
Mhm.
Use that one on how it'll work for you, and then use the others. Gene Keating does a lot of good stuff about GSA bonds and 1099 OIDs, and then Pat Devine had a great process, but Pat Devine was belligerent. Okay, if you ever watch his videos, you hear him just talk shit to everybody, right? So that's not how you want to talk to a judge. That's not how you want to deal with. That is not equity. Okay. And equity is coming at people honorably. Right. And so so there's probably 90% of what, Pat Devine put out was great, but it was just like his delivery was a little rough. And that's why it took him 9 years to get remedy, is because he pissed people
Okay.
off. Okay. And now I'm big at pissing people off, so I'm not much better. But you will find people in this that are doing equity. And when they're doing equity, you're going to find them a lot quieter. They're not going to argue. They're not going to fight. They're not going to do any of that stuff because it's important that they show up honorably. When you deal with Moors, like the true Moors individuals, the guys and gals that are like really doing this right, you're going to see that they don't argue. They don't fight. They don't bicker. They don't anything. And there's one guy, I don't know if you guys are a part of FILA, but there's a guy there, his name's SOE. And SOE has got some fantastic stuff. He's really, really, really good at what he does. He mainly just discharges debt. But SOE, he'll just look at somebody and he'll say, he'll say, uh, brother, you need to get educated.
Yeah.
He doesn't yell at him. He doesn't like say bad things to him or whatever, but that's because he believes in what he's doing. And he knows that if he acts with equity, that it will come back to him. So, I guess by the best piece of advice is to just go everywhere. You know, it, if somebody shows up with some information, look into it and see if you can use it. If you can use it, awesome. If you can't use it, you know, like today I had some conversations with people about the birth certificate and authentication, right? And Pat's like saying, don't do that, blah, blah, blah. Well, I got about 8 others saying to do it. Okay. So the
Mhm.
thing is, it's going to cost you $50. and it's not going to hurt anything. You're not out anything, right? So if you get it authenticated, double authenticated to your state and Department of State, when you get it back from the Department of State, you're going to get a letter on it that says for full faith and credit. So anybody that tells you the birth certificate doesn't have value, why would the Department of State attach a document to the outside of it that says full faith and credit if it had no value? Right? So
Right.
some of this stuff I just do because it's cool. You know, I'm not like trying to get a remedy. I'm just, like Coach MT had this thing where it's called a live life claim where you do fingerprints and hair follicles and stuff like that. It doesn't do anything. You just mail it to yourself. And then you got this page and it's just got some cool writing. It's got some, I don't know if you guys know David Wynn Miller. But David Wynn Miller is the one that did that hyphenated name thing. And that's why everybody hyphenates their first and middle name and then uses the full colon, right? Is because of David Wynn Miller. And David Wynn Miller is the one that put out there that the United States, that the Postal Union is in charge of everything and it's not the government. And he's the one that said that, your name is a verb, right? So your all caps name is a verb, right? Because it's your all caps name, the subject of your all caps name is a corporation. And what the name does is describes the corporation, right? So when you don't hyphenate it, then you are accepting the verb. Right? But when you hyphenate it and put the full colon in, you are establishing that you are not the corporation, that you are the fact. Okay, because the hyphenated full colon name actually means your first name of the family, your last name.
Right.
So a lot of the stuff that Pat does, you'll see that it says Patrick, full colon, of the family divine, right? So that's what that means. When you put a full colon in your name, it means that you're the fact, you're the real person, you're the human being. And that was pioneered by David Wynn Miller. And, he does a lot of cool stuff, but it's just too much, like trying to do a syntax, language grading on a document. Like to me, I understand that you can discharge debt that way, but I think there's a quicker way to do it. So I don't do a lot of that, but I have listened to every minute and every second of David Wynn Miller's speeches. Okay. Because I don't ever discount anything, because I want to be free. I want to be free. I want to act free. I want to live free and I want to teach free. That all makes sense?
Yep, it sure does.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey Ken, have you ever got the nominate record back?
The what?
Nominate record.
No. No, I've gone to a
Yeah,
few court cases and I asked for a full accounting. Is that what you're talking about? The full accounting of your trust?
well now on the back of the Social Security card, the control number.
Yeah, that's the account number. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah, when you
Pat
get
says
one
that
of them,
so when I was doing with Gene Keating says that the routing number is the one on the back and the account number is on the front. But Pat says that it's the opposite, that the Social Security number is your routing number and the account number, the Mortemain account, is the number on the back. But I've never gotten an accounting of that.
yeah, I did some one time, and the number on the back is actually the account number, and
Yep.
then the routing number would be one of the Federal Reserve banks. But when you get that nominate record back through a FOIA request,
Yeah.
it gives you like a real fancy it gives you like like it have ribbons on the front, and it puts like a bow
Yep.
on there, and it says something like full faith and credit.
Yep. And that's what, when you get the birth certificate authenticated, they do the same thing. Now,
Right.
every time I send the FOI, whatever, FOID, or every time I send it, they send it back. and with letters and tell me they can't do it. So there's some reason that they don't want me to have it.
Right.
I've done it 3 times. I send it in and they send it back. And they're
Mm.
like, "Oh, we don't know what this is," or "We don't know," and I just send, that freedom of FOIA, Freedom of Information Act thing in, they send me letters. So I just keep doing it and eventually they're going to give it to me, but yeah, I haven't got that back yet.
Right. I guess it depends on what it's for, because they got pretty much, you can do a FOIA on pretty much anything.
Well, I did mine on my identity because I was trying to establish that I am not a US citizen. And so
Okay.
when that comes back, it's the information you need to go to Social Security and get your account change, your master file from US citizen to national. So that's why I was doing it. But like I said, they just keep kicking it back.
Did you do that through was it the USCIS or something like that?
Uh, Mine was the
Department of Homeland Security?
well, they keep telling me I sent it to the wrong place. Yeah. Yeah, they send me a letter back every time I do it. And it says, you have the wrong office. and so I don't know, I just have to dig into it more. I've been working on a few other things, so I haven't dug into that really deep, but yeah.
Now, I was asking, is that through the Department of Homeland Security?
Mine was the Department of State.
Department of State, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't done it through anything through Homeland Security yet.
Yeah, that's where I got results right there. They sent me a certificate saying that of course before you do it, when you go on that my e-verify, you're supposed to lock your you can lock your the social security number. And then when you do the request, it'll come back as what it says, no person, they don't have any records, no person centric, records or whatever. Basically saying that you're not showing up as a United States citizen.
Yeah, and I think that's why people are doing it, is because that's what it comes back at. But they don't want
Right.
me to have that, right?
Mm.
Because every time I try and do something to like pull myself out of jurisdiction, they come up with reasons not to do it. I haven't always been on the level with the law, so I'm not somebody they want out of the system.
Right.
Right. But I've done Pat's revoke the SSN process, and I've sent it all to the Department of State and everybody, Social Security and whatever. And I know it worked because I tried to get insurance and they denied me.
Mm.
So like that's a pretty good indication that
Right.
what I did worked, because they won't give me state insurance. It's just fine. I don't care. But it's just um so I know I'm out of the system. They're just fighting me on everything,
Right. Right.
you know, which is okay.
I was looking at something else that Patrick Devine was talking about, the baptismal record.
Yep.
And so I looked up what a Christian name was, and only thing it said was pretty much every site I went on, definition, it said the given name and separate from the family.
Yeah.
So when I looked at uh some images of what a baptismal certificate looks like, and I see they doing it wrong. They putting both names on a first and last name,
Yeah.
but it
The
should only be just the given name.
yeah, so that's what the hyphen does, is that makes that all one word. So the given name would be the middle name.
Right.
That's your Christian name, is your middle name, right? And so when you hyphenate it, it's one word. So that's how, like, and then later in Pat's stuff later on, he doesn't use his middle name anymore. He only uses it when he's addressing the birth certificate or the DD 214. But when he's doing anything else, it's just Patrick, full colon, divine, or full colon of the family divine. So yeah, that's it. And then when I got not baptized, but when I got confirmed, then they gave me another name. So I have two middle names. So I have, Kent Nicholas Paul Stark. And if you research the Vatican, first of all, I have a document that shows when they enacted the Sestige V trust. And I don't know if you know what a papal bull is, but a papal bull is a order written by the Pope, which is supposed to come directly from God. But what people don't know is that they use the skin of children and the blood of children to write them. And I have a document that shows all this stuff, and it's absolutely crazy. And so that stuff is like, that Catholic stuff is about as evil as it gets. And that's where all this stuff came from, where they put everybody into servitude, and it all came back from Constantine, and so it was around that time when they did that is when they created the last name. So up until 1000 AD, people they only had one name. You just had Jim, son of John, right? And there was never a middle name, there was never a last name, and it was the Vatican that created that. And then in this document that I have to dig it up, but it talks about the papal bulls and what they are and what they do, and this is why they felt like it gave everything power, is because the blood of children has more power than the blood of an adult. So they would actually use the skin and the blood of a child to write papal bull. They still do. They still do to this day, and that's what we're dealing, that when you're talking about that and you're like, this is what you're dealing with, right? You can understand why it's not honorable.
Right.
Why you go to court and they're not honorable. Why there isn't a single version of people going to jail other than when there's a victim where it's anything other than a claim for money. Okay. And that's the whole system. That's how it's set up. So what we're doing when we're trying to get free is we're just trying to create an environment where that doesn't apply to us. And the truth is it doesn't. If you look up the doctrine of parity, okay, the doctrine of parity is Penn Hollow. Find it. It's really hard to find on the internet because they don't want you to find it. I'm going to read it to you. Okay, this is 1795 Supreme Court ruling. And it's Penn Howell versus Doan's administration. Supreme Court of the United States, 1795, insomuch as every government is an artificial person and abstraction and a creature of the mind only. A government can interface only with other artificial persons. Okay, so basically and this is a law, this is common law. So what this is saying is that governments and courts can only deal with other corporations. This is the law that proves it. Okay.
Right.
So when you walk into a court and you say, I'm the human being, I'm so-and-so, the real man. That's why they play all this bullshit, because they have to get you to be the surety of your all caps name, or they can't deal with you.
Right.
And it says it right here. It says it right here that they have to be an artificial person and they can only deal with other artificial persons. Legal person. You look up legal person in Black's Law Dictionary and it says corporation, no body. Natural person, not a corporation, body, right? And then when you look up person in the dictionary, in Black's Law or one of the Bovier's or whatever, one of them says monster, right?
I
And then
think
you
it's
look up
who's in it.
monster, and, you know, it's just like when you really dig into these that's why Pat talked about that definitions are so important because you have to understand what they mean by that. You know, when they're reading a law to you and that says let no person drive over the speed of 55 miles an hour, they're not talking about you. They're talking about the corporation. Let the corporation, because the only thing that can drive a car is a corporation.
Correct.
You can't drive a car. You can only travel. The car drives. You don't drive. The car drives. You steer. Right? So that's why the law says that you can travel across this country, you know, unaffected. Is because it's just like the elevator, right? You ride the elevator, right? You travel in the elevator. You don't drive it. The elevator drives itself.
Mm-hmm.
You push the button and it goes up. You don't make the elevator go up. Just because you push a button, just because you push the start button in your car and you steer the wheel, you're not driving. You're traveling. So this is why you have to know these definitions because it makes sense, you know. Which one is it in here? All right. So there's the one in here that's so important is that it's called Shuttlesworth versus Birmingham in Alabama. If a state converts your right into a privilege and issues a license and charges a fee for it, you can ignore the license and fee and engage in that right without impunity. Okay, that's taught. Guess what else they ask for a license for? Practice law. So by Shuttlesworth versus Birmingham, you can practice law. So every time that I deal in court, I sign my documents, Kent Stark, attorney in fact. Because I am. I have a POA that says that I'm the attorney in fact. Right? So that's the law says right here. And then you go to Marbury versus Madison, that Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Any law in conflict is null and void. Okay, so when they come at you and says, oh, so-and-so state law says that you got to have a license to practice law. And then you say, okay, well, Shuttlesworth versus Birmingham and Marbury versus Madison. I don't have to have a license. So that's what I'm trying to stress is to is to research this stuff, get a Black's Law Dictionary, read it, get Suits and Chancery and read it. You know, if you don't like to read like me, listen to the audiobooks, you know. But this Weiss Trustee Handbook, you go through that 4 or 5 times and you're just going to be amazed. You're going to be like, why in the hell haven't I been doing this? You know, it's just like when you start to grasp it, you're just going to be like, this stuff is amazing. Okay, let me find I think I'm missing some questions. All right, so Jason Rodriguez is asking about what about being able to resend credits from past car loans and business finances. Dealing with the Freedom Matrix is claiming that you can recoup your money. Well, using the 1099 OID, okay, that's what you're doing. Is that so you're either going to recoup your money through your expenses, any loan payments that you made, you can recoup through the 1099 OD. The 1099 OID is for anything that you've paid out that you can get back. Okay, and that includes taxes. Any taxes that you paid Or if you have a tax return coming and they took it, you get that back, right? On one of Pat's videos, one of the guys claims that he got a check for $900,000 from the IRS. And where do you have that sent? Because you can't do that and then have it deposited into your Social Security account, because that's where they show up and arrest you. Because you have a contract that says you won't do that. That's why you have to revoke the SSN. Then you get this money, and then you have it put in the non-interest bearing account for the trust so that you're not in jurisdiction, right? Another thing that Pat talked about was the zip code, right? So when you put the apprentices around the zip code, that's the four corners, right? So what that means is that zip code is good in the four corners of the earth. Okay, so if you use their zip code, every zip code that you use as a return address without apprentices correlates to an area of Washington, D.C. Every single zip code in America is not talking about the land in the state you live in. It's talking about a piece of ground in Washington, D.C. So when you put that as a return address, or you claim this is where I live, you're claiming your gravestone, right? It's your gravestone. This is so amazing when you do this. That's why they put care of, CO, then your address, and then they put your zip in parentheses. Because if you don't do that, you're talking about the gravestone, your all caps name and its graveyard in Washington, D.C. So you put the care of and you put your address. Or Pat talked about, like, if you see your zip code and it's like a bunch of numbers and then there's the 4 at the end, that's your postal box number. That's your live box number. That's the human being. So what that's doing when you write that down is it ties the corporation to the human. So what Pat does is he says, put down Kent Nicholas Stark hyphenated full colon, and then put postal box, mine's 2775, Rutledge, Georgia Republic. And then you put the zip in parentheses, or don't put a zip at all, because they can't make you use a zip code. Now, when you do certified mail and crap like that, you have to do something. But when you're just mailing stuff regularly, that's what I do, is I put my name, postal box 2775, Rutledge, Georgia Republic, and that's my return address. Okay, and that pulls you out of jurisdiction. So understand, there's like tons of things that they're going to do to try and put you in jurisdiction. So yes, you can recoup your money that way, but you have to get free first. This is one of the things in Credit Academy that I don't agree with, is that they're teaching the final phase. But there's a whole bunch of stuff you got to do before you get to that. That's why people go to jail, is because they didn't get free first. You have to free yourself from the contracts first. So that's when you're sending affidavits of rescission to the Secretary of State and giving your driver's license back. Right? And you're getting the new passport with the 4 or the 5 stars on it. Like, all those processes are designed. Yes, they don't really do anything when you do them, but what they are is they're designed to create this paper trail that shows that you're not a citizen, that you're a private person. And that's why that's so important. Like, when you get up to that, like, it's just like the foreign grantor trust. Once you create the foreign grantor trust, you have to do a UCC against it. And if you don't do a UCC against the foreign grantor trust, okay, then you haven't established that you're the secured party creditor of it. Okay, the same thing with the estate. As soon as you put your social security number in estate, then you got to do a UCC 1. And then I used the bond. I used the $100 million bond I created to tie that in. And so I put a $100 million lien against the trust, against everything, the state. I got 100 million one against the IRS. I got one against the Social Security Administration. I got like 15 UCCs before I even did the non-UCC. Right. And that's what Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say that sounds like a defense in itself right there.
Yeah.
Like you putting those bonds in like that.
Yeah. That's how you use them. You got
Right.
to, people are like creating these bonds and then wanting to like, oh, I want to, like they're going to get the money. No, there is no money. There is no money. If you're chasing money, you're still a slave. Okay. You're creating bonds so that you can create security instruments to create protection. And that's what you're doing. And then I found this. Well, the silver bond is amazing. If you guys haven't heard about this, watch my video on it, research it, and look into it because it's so fun. You get 21 pieces of silver, you do a bond, you tie that 21 pieces of silver to your body. The Constitution says that all matters over $20 are of the jurisdiction of the U.S. Constitution. Okay, there is no money. The only thing that you can tie to that rule is silver, because the only lawful money left in circulation are Morgan silver dollars. Morgan silver dollars are lawful money. They're 0.990 silver. It's I think it's 893 or something like that. And so then you tie that silver to your body, which puts you under the jurisdiction of the Constitution. Also, because there is no lawful money, that 21 pieces of silver has more value than all the fiat currency in the world. So understand, like, that is just like, it's so fun to do it. Plus you get into buying silver, and which is what we need to learn anyway. And then it ties your body and the silver to the Constitution. So it's basically you walk into a court, like if they arrest you, they say, oh, we have a warrant for your arrest, blah, blah, blah. You just hand them the silver bond. They can't even look at it because all courts are fiat courts. So that 21 pieces of silver makes you more valuable than their entire court. They're in bankruptcy. The United States is in bankruptcy. Every court is in bankruptcy. Every judge is in bankruptcy. Every police department's in bankruptcy. Everything has to be in bankruptcy. Okay, so because of that, they're bankrupt. But if you have 21 pieces of silver tied to you, you can never be bankrupt, because 21 pieces of silver has more value than all the fiat currency in the world. So they can't look at you and say, oh, you got to go to prison because you didn't pay the debt. You can say, yeah, I'm worth more than you are. And so that's what that's about. And the greatest expense in that is the silver. But once you buy $700 worth of silver, you still have $700 worth of silver. You don't give the silver to anyone, you put it in your safe. And then you create the bond, you get it notarized, and then you put it on the record. And then if they ever try and go to the judge to get an arrest warrant, the judge already signed your bond. They can't say that they don't know that it exists, right? Because they're the ones that put it on the record. I love this shit. This shit's the best.
Can you hear me, Ken?
Yeah.
It might be a silly question, but you said $21, and I remember reading about that, and it says all matters over $20 are protected by the Constitution. Would a $20 gold piece and then a $1 silver dollar, would that work in lieu of buying all 20 of them?
I think so, but I don't see anybody doing it. I see people doing 21 Morgan silver dollars. So I had a $20 gold piece. I went and traded it in for silver. So a lot of this stuff, I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just telling you what I know people are doing. I got this silver process from the Moors. So their stuff seems to work. So I don't split hairs too much about it.
I just had a $20 gold piece, so I was thinking, rather than go buy some silver, because I had a few ounces of silver and then a $20 gold piece. I was thinking of, why don't I just use that? But I guess it wouldn't hurt to go buy an extra 20.
Anything that has over $20 in value, you can use. Now I see guys using the brand new silver dollars. Okay, and they're 0.999 silver. They're called the Silver Eagles. I see guys using those, but those were minted after 1933. Now, I'm not saying they don't work, but to me, if you can get Morgan silver, so Morgan silver dollars are 33 bucks a piece, and the new silver dollars are 35. So it's actually cheaper to use Morgans, and Morgans they stopped making them in 1921. So every single Morgan in circulation is older than 1933. So I feel like it just adheres you a little bit better to the Constitution because of that. But again, when I've read the other things from other people, they've used all kind. I've seen them use a silver dollar certificate. Oh, 31. This is something my dad left me. So this is a dollar bill, but it's backed by silver. Okay, so I've seen them use these because the value of these are $24. So it's actually worth more than 20. But all the paperwork that I see, people are using silver dollars and actual silver. So I'm not trying to push it. For me, I'm like, what's working? And then I do it. So when as far as where that video is, it's on YouTube, the silver bond video. So if you want to go on the YouTube channel and watch it, that's where you can find it. And or it's in it's on the website too. So anybody else have anything else they're curious about?
When you talked about the attorney, you talked about being an attorney in fact.
Yeah.
I always thought about that. The only real attorney is the one that's in fact.
Yeah.
No, you notice on the other one is just attorney, a legal attorney, but it's not a fact.
Yeah, and their power of attorney is with the state, and the state's dead. So their power of attorney is null and void. And then when you bring it up in court and ask them about it, they say, well, I represent the people. And then you come back and you say, okay, are those people registered voters? And then he's going to say, well, yeah. Well, then you say, is the judge a registered voter? Is the jury a registered voter? And then when he says, yeah, then you say motion to dismiss, failure to prosecute. Because he can't prosecute the case and represent everybody in the courtroom. Yeah, that's Gene Keating stuff too. Like this, what's funny is I was watching a Gene Keating video, and it was on I don't know if you know SBC University. It's the guy's name is Yosef Al. So he posted it, and then Gene Keating was talking, and somebody came in there and said, "Oh, you and Pat Devine should get together," blah blah blah. And he goes, "What do you mean? He's my student." And they're like, oh, so what I'm saying is that like all roads lead to Rome. It's like there's nothing that you're doing in these processes that don't go back to the same stuff. It's the same people doing the same things. Okay, they change their rules a little bit, the government does. Okay, and that's why some of the processes change a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's all the same. You were born as a title holder. Your title has a placeholder on it until you reach the age of majority. Article 1, Section 1 of the Constitution says when you reach the age of majority and have spent 7 years as a citizen, you can claim your title as representative and elector. That's why they get you to sign and get a voter ID, because that pulls you into a jurisdiction. but you're already an elector. You're already somebody that can elect people. So why would you need a voter's registration card? Why? Because it pulls you out of being an elector and it pulls you into jurisdiction as a slave. So you got to rescission all that stuff, right? Because you're already, so that's what it is. The Constitution guarantees that you have title and you can claim it. And your birth certificate is that title. It's a conveyance of title. It's a color of title. The title is representative of the United States of America. But the birth certificate is the deed. Okay, so then you're given that deed. And this is why, and a lot of people disagree with this, but this is why you have to get it authenticated. Okay, is because you got that deed, it's sitting in front of you. The only person that can possibly authenticate, to get authenticated is the person whose name is on it. Okay, and so that's why you have to get it double authenticated, because that is a perfected title. Once you have a perfected title and you let them know that you are putting claim on it, then you become the beneficial title holder. And then you can go into court and express the trust. I am here to settle all accounts associated with the named party. I am not the named party. I am the beneficial title holder. And I am here to settle the debt. That's what, and that's what you're doing. But they have so much bullshit in your way to be able to do that. That's why you got to do UCCs. That's why you got to do non-UCCs. That's why you got to do a UCC contract trust. That's why you got to do letters of credit. That's why you got to do all this crap, 1099s and all that stuff. That's because these are all the walls that they put up to keep you from claiming title. Literally, there's only one thing that you have to do: claim your title. That's the only thing you have to do. There's nothing else that you have to do. Once you claim your title, once you claim a perfected title, they work for you. Everybody works for you. The president works for you. And that's the only thing that matters. Everything else is crap. Okay, but you have to do it so that you can knock all the walls down, right? Another thing that I do and that Pat talks about is claiming a allodial title on your body. Your body is portable land. Your birth certificate is a land patent. So you're claiming your land patent. I grew up in Wisconsin, so they're trying to not do it. They have a law that actually says that you can't claim an update of patent. And I went against them. You know, and I'm like, no, your laws don't matter. This is constitutional law. You can't make a law that contradicts the Constitution. You know, and this is all you're doing, is you're just creating things so that you can knock the walls down. And then once you get free and once you get secure, then you use that trust to build a wall around you. That's your country.
Did you say double authentication on the birth certificate?
Yeah, so you do it with your state, right? You send it to your state and you say, I'm traveling to Egypt, and then they authenticate it, and then you send it to the Department of State, and then they authenticate that. So a double authenticated birth certificate is irrefutable.
Yeah, because I've been having that for years. And
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. He was talking. I'm sorry, I cut in.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So Kent, hi. I want to ask this. I posted earlier on. You were talking about how they get you into jurisdiction with like a voter's ID, you know, and all that. So now, and then the question that I also posed was that can you not use some of the forms that they have created to get yourself out in addition to all these processes that we're doing? Because I understand, I saw the letter, the SSN letter, but my question is that, for example, you sign certain documents to get yourself into their jurisdiction, but they apparently also have certain documents that get you out. So I'm trying to figure out how is it that the documents that they have to get you out still pulls you into their jurisdiction. For example, when, sorry.
Yeah, you just can't use their documents. Like, just all you have to do is write a letter, an affidavit that says,
Uh-huh.
I'm done with this contract. And that's 18
Okay.
USC 242. Okay, by any color of law. Right?
With everything, because like for when I was trying to get myself out of when I no longer wanted to do like the voters ID, and I wrote a letter, I notarized it, an affidavit, and then I sent it to them, and they told me that they were going to pull my name and everything out of it.
Right.
So I was just wondering, it just baffled me that there were certain documents that they had created, and if you wanted to opt out, it pulls you back into their jurisdiction. I didn't understand how that is. And, since that they have created that one to say rightfully.
Like, I'll send it to them, and then no matter what, I don't care what they do. Like, I'll send it to them, and then I'll send it to Pima County and pay $30 and put it on the record. And then anything that they do, you can just say it's on the record.
Right. So then it's okay to do both, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
If it exists.
Yeah,
you would just do an affidavit.
Like when it comes to like GSA bonds and SF forms, like I'll use their forms. But when it comes to like most of the other stuff, I write them. I write everything.
Okay. Okay. And the foreign trust, not the foreign trust, sorry. Yeah, well, the trust that you create, usually you create it by yourself, right? After you've gotten the EIN number.
Right. Yep,
the 98 number, you create it by yourself.
Yes.
Because it's what I learned or I heard or I read. I heard, and learned that usually you create that by yourself. You can even use, they said, certain algorithms and or type out, or even if you go to script, there are templates there that can help you, guide you to write your own. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, well, if you read Weiss's trustee handbook, you'll know everything you need.
Yeah. Okay.
Like it's a really that one is really good. Here's the reason why you want to write a trust, because if you don't write a trust, then they're going to make assumptions. If you create a trust, they cannot assume anything. All laws are written in assumption.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Does it matter if it's irrevocable or revocable trust, or is that a part of?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to protect assets, then you want it irrevocable. So what I did, I don't know if you're here when I was talking about this. What I did is I created an irrevocable trust for my foreign grantor trust, and then I created a family trust that's revocable, and then that's the beneficiary. So whenever I take money out of the trust, it goes to the revocable trust for the family. So I use two trusts.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. I need that.
Anybody got anything else?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Well, you were speaking earlier about the 3520A form.
Yeah.
I kind of missed that. And another form, is it 8880?
8806.
8806?
Yeah, it's the. Here, I'll do a little slower so that you can go through the list a little bit slower. So we'll start with 56, 56F, 3520A, W8BEN, 2848, 8832, 8806, And so then when you create your trust, then you got your 1040, which is your personal taxes. 1041 is a trust return. And you use the trust return along with the 1099 OID to get money back from the IRS or the Treasury, basically borrowing from yourself. So you use those forms, 1040, 1040V, 1041, 1041V. The other one I was just thinking about is, so the 8806, I did one from myself to the estate, and then I did another 8806 from the estate to the foreign grantor trust. And then all these, when you do these documents with the IRS, then you want to put them in your then you want to put them in your security agreements. So like if you start reading Pat's write-ups that he uses for the foreign grantor trust and the estate, it literally like addresses these documents, you know. And then when you're doing bonds, you know, you got the, I don't know if you know these, but there's the 13909, there's 3949A, 211, and then there's the color of law form. So those you want to, you know, write down too. You know, what you guys have an advantage to is that, like, when I was going through this a year ago, like I would try and like figure this stuff out, and people would throw like one or two documents at me, right? And then I'd send them to the IRS, and then somebody would throw me a few more. So then I'd send the other ones I already sent, and plus the two extras, you know. And so like I'm trying to lay this all out for you in one, so that you don't look like an asshole like me sending 20 letters to the IRS, you know. Or I sent one with like, it had like 20 15 or 20 56s in it, you know. So that's the other thing, is that you want to with the form 56, every time you do something with a court, with the IRS, with anybody, send the 56, because the 56 establishes that you are the fiduciary over the all caps name. So it keeps you out of jurisdiction. So this is the kind of stuff you have to do. Like you could do all this work. You could spend a year and a half doing all this crap, and then you could make one mistake and put yourself right back in the hole. But the one thing that I wanted to bring up earlier is I was talking about the elector and all that stuff. So one of the laws says that in order for you to be elector and to claim your title, you can't owe any debt. Okay, so this is why in the old days they used to tell women you couldn't vote, because if you were married, you were indebted to your husband. Okay, so Pat talks about this in his videos too. So like as a woman, there are some extra precautions you have to do to stay out of debt. So, you know, if I was a woman, I'd definitely do the silver bond, you know, because as soon as you do the silver bond, that pulls you out of indebtedness. You cannot be in debt and have a silver bond, because a silver bond is worth more than all the fiat currency in the world. So that's another thing, is that, so we can't be in debt because there is no debt, because there is no money, because everything's in bankruptcy. Okay, but the silver bond pulls you out of bankruptcy and makes you a non-bankrupt person. So that's why that stuff is important.
I can. One more question.
Sure.
As far as I heard you recommend that we send a 56 every time we're doing something.
Yep.
So, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the process that Christina was promoting, but I actually did that with sending in the 1096, the OID and all that, the 1041V, 1041. I sent that like last week sometime, but I did not do a 56 only because I had filed one weeks prior in the state where I filed taxes. So do you recommend that I actually go ahead and send a 56 where I sent the actual packet?
Send copies of everything you already sent with a 56.
Okay. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yep.
So everything that I already sent last week, just make copies of that, send it again with the 56.
Yes. And just put a letter in there. I inadvertently forgot the 56 with my last mailing. So please accept this with my deepest apologies, blah, blah, blah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. I hope I didn't confuse anybody. Did all this stuff make sense?
It makes sense. We just gotta, try to put in the work.
Yeah. So that's why I got that study group. Like I want you all to get in there and I want you to be a part of that and ask anything. There's no dumb question. The only stupid question is the one you don't ask. And I just that free study group is your guys' group. Like I'm just there to help you guys along the way, but this is where you all need to help each other, and if somebody's got a question or whatever, like hold their hand, this is how you pay it forward to people. You want equity to come your way, grab somebody that's struggling and say, hey, this is what I did. So that's what I'm trying to create. I just want us to, I want us to love each other and help each other get free, because they've been doing this. They've been doing this for thousands of years. We can track this back to the Vatican, but they were doing it before that. I mean, you go back to Sumerian texts are 12,000 years old, and they were putting people in slavery then. So this is how long this has been going on. Babylon has been controlling people from the beginning. So and how do we get out of this? By working together. The one thing that they cannot do and they cannot beat is our numbers. We are the biggest number. And so that's what I'm trying to do. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you for participating. And again, anything you need, any questions that you got, just ask it in the group, okay?
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah. Have a great night.
Too.
All right, brother.